watching on the internet, you can email from our website, WYSHradio.com. Just click on the Contact Us button and email your questions. Now sit back and listen as listeners throughout East Tennessee and the entire world answer your questions on Ask Your Neighbor on BBB TV 12 and AM 1380 WYSH.
Hi, this is Jim Miller with WYSH Local Information News. Remember, if you see news happen, email me, jim@WYSHradio.com, or message us on the WYSH Facebook page. Each day, we bring you the latest in local news. David Aldrich, Captain Accurate, has your weather forecast, and Pete Michaels is in the sky with the traffic. So we've got you covered, and if you see news happen, let us know. Your source for local information news since 1960, WYSH.
Hi, folks. This is Wimp Shootman. I would like to thank the Eye Center for their support for the Clinton Dragons. I know firsthand how they treat you. This is where I go for my service. The Eye Center is a total eye care center. The doctors and staff are committed to carrying on the tradition of quality treatment and surgery for a broad range of eye conditions and diseases. They serve all ages and have a large supply of the latest frames for your selection. Call 865-482-8890 or come by 90 Vermont Avenue in Oak Ridge. The Eye Center is your center for eye care.
Did you know that a lot of contractors are hiring people from out of town with no guarantee of their qualifications? Are you tired of going through temp services and getting unskilled labor? Keep jobs local and keep money in-state. Partner with Local 102 for all your mechanical job needs. Skilled labor that's always improving with state-of-the-art training. Let Local 102 be the job source for the best in plumbing, pipe fitting, welding, and HVAC. Visit ualocal102.org to learn more about Local 102. Your goals equal our goals.
Good morning, everybody. We are live here on Ask Your Neighbor on Wednesday. I'm discombobulated because I stayed. Did you stay up and watch the returns? I did too.
I let Lee stay up. He did the up until 3:30, but I was after midnight. So, which for me might as well be 3:30.
I stayed awake. Tracy fell asleep on the couch, and one of the twins, James David, he said, "Dad, please let me stay up." I said, "All right." So he made himself a little cot on the recliner. He fell asleep, but all the kids were like, "Wake us up, Dad, and let us know who wins." So we woke all the kids up at 2:30 this morning.
Yeah,
so
yes,
it was exciting, exciting time. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
When I text you, it's hard for me to remember the last time you came up. It's been a while.
It has been a while.
Well, thank you for coming.
Absolutely. I'm glad to be here.
It's a great day. You know, we could have been here going like, well, I didn't even think it was the day after election when we booked it. So what's been going on with you and with Anderson County government? I know just before we went on, we're talking about how busy things have been, and even we're one month running into the other. I had to think about what day it was. Things have been busy here. I'm sure you've been busy too.
Yes.
What all's been going on?
Well, I guess I know folks are going to want to talk about the election. My office is right across from the election office, and I was talking to Mark Stevens this morning. You know, it's hard to believe, but I've been there for 12 years, Ron.
Really?
Yes. And so I've watched your kids grow.
Yes, you have. You certainly have.
I have never seen them so busy in terms of people at the window, activity, phone calls. But I did ask him this morning, and I brought this. He said turnout was an all-time high.
Oh, wow.
So there were 36,745 ballots cast.
Wow.
And so it was a big day.
It gets us, we have 53,000 registered voters or something like that?
I think you're right on that,
Wow, so almost 2/3.
Yeah.
That's a good turnout.
Yes.
You think that's reflective? You think Anderson County is kind of reflective of the whole rest of the nation? Folks just said I got to get out and cast my vote.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, I think we can, we're talking heads too, Ron. So I think, you look back at the Bill Clinton election, and I was talking to Lee about this last night, and you remember his line about it's the economy, stupid.
Yeah.
And I really think that the economy, and maybe that wasn't, the answer in the poll, but just what everyone has been enduring. And if you look at just a lot of the demographics of President Trump's numbers and the folks that he brought in to his camp to vote for him, there were some unifying themes. I think Make America Affordable Again was one of those.
Healthy again.
And healthy again. Robert Kennedy, he had his own following. And I don't know if you ever followed that, where Instagram removed him.
Oh, no, I didn't know that.
A while back, a long time ago. And, those issues are important to America.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's been a lot of gaslighting of the average person that has happened, telling people that, for instance, if you're concerned about the border, you're racist. No,
Mm-mm.
that has nothing to do with racism. And, I think people were just tired of that. And they said, we're going to come out. Maybe we might not show up in your polling, but we're going to pull the lever and make a statement there.
Do you think some of the talking heads are talking about that maybe this is the end? This is the brick wall for that kind of segregation of Hispanic Americans, where now they're just becoming American. You know what I mean? They've been here long enough.
Yes.
And it's like their problems are our problems are their problems. And also that people are just, they just were tired of the woke and the silliness of boys wanting to be girls. I mean, that's, to me, it's silly. Maybe it's not to everybody, but I just felt like the country was just finished with that. Or I hope it is.
Well, I mean, that did emerge in a lot of the polling, where a lot of dads were like, I don't want my daughter playing against a man. I mean, the physicality is obvious. I mean, and you saw Trump running that in, on all the football programs, when the games were on the air, you saw that ad with clearly a guy there with all the girls that are about, a foot shorter than he is. And I think people, again, that's gaslighting.
Absolutely.
And you're being told that you're a hater or you're prejudiced or you're bigoted for believing that. No, I mean, that's not the case. I mean, I think America is very inclusive.
Oh, yeah.
So, I think that was a big part of it too, Ron.
Last night, after the one that declared him the winner, and then after he spoke, I told Tracy, I said, don't get mad at me, but I got to do this. So I flipped over to MSNBC, and it was like the sky was falling. One of the ladies was like, it's morning right now in Ukraine, and they're waking up, and they're scared to death. It's panic right now in France and Germany. I was like, who told you that?
Yes.
It's not panic overseas. He was here for 4 years. They pretty much know what to expect out of this guy, and he's told them. But
well, it's like the line that he's Hitler, and no, he's not. I mean, you look at Elon Musk, and I'll say this, Ron. I think this was very much an election where men showed up.
Oh, yeah.
And I look at the first time I ran, and I remember looking at the demographics when I ran in 2012, and men showed up in force.
Yes.
And, women have been outvoting men.
Yep.
And I think, that was a little bit of difference here in this election. But you look at like Elon Musk and, Barstool Sports and Joe Rogan, and I listen to Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
In fact, Commissioner Palmer and I were riding somewhere to an event, and, I found myself, I was, on the verge of cursing. And I said, I said, I've got to turn off the Joe Rogan, because he gets in my head, and then I start wanting to inject all the curse words into my language, and I got to get my life back in order, and then I can turn him back on. But I think people are listening because, and you do this locally, you have people on, you let them talk. And I think there has been a real void for that, where you just have, I like listening to Tucker, because Tucker brings folks on, and I may not agree with them. He may not agree. One of the cool things about Tucker is, for the most part, he just lets them talk.
Yeah.
And
it's a conversation that if you want to know somebody, let them talk. They'll tell you.
Yes.
That's at least that's what I found. I watched on that same channel, they immediately started saying that it was because men had decided they couldn't support a woman, that it was, I mean, they started it, even, he hadn't finished his complete speech and they were already starting. I was like, I hope everybody can, see it's a mandate. It's going to be an electoral 300 or so victory. He won the popular vote. He's going to continue to add to his totals on the popular vote. I don't see where there's room to find fault or, say that men are bigoted because they couldn't vote for a black woman. I
don't think so. And I'm going to share, let's look at Marsha Blackburn's numbers. You had two women running against each other in that race. Marsha Blackburn, 65. She got almost 66% of the vote in Anderson County.
Yes.
And Gloria Johnson, 32. And, Marsha beat Phil Bredesen when she ran the first time. Mm-hmm. And Phil Bredesen was a very popular Democrat governor.
Sure.
Has a lot of crossover vote. You can look at a lot of the precincts in Anderson County and see where he was strong when he ran for governor against Van Hillary.
Yes.
He beat Van in a lot of traditionally Republican precincts in Anderson County. I think what they're saying is, and they often do this to the black community, if you're black, then you must fit this particular political narrative. This has got to be your set of beliefs.
Yes.
And if you're a woman, this has to be your set of beliefs. No, not necessarily.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it was anti-woman at all. It was what's been going on in our country with a lot of very important, huge, big issues.
And for someone to tell you that there's a problem with you if you don't agree with what they have, if you don't agree that a man can go into a woman's locker room, you have a problem and you're a bigot and you're this. I think people just said, no, I'm not. There's a problem with you if you think that about me or anybody else, and I don't necessarily want you in control or power.
Yes.
I think someone said it's a common sense election. At the end of the day, I think common sense prevailed.
Yeah. And then you had some gas poured on the fire with the garbage, calling that was, we had deplorables and then we moved to garbage. And then I really think the symbolism of what happened to Peanut the squirrel.
Yeah.
Really and truly, Ron. I mean, there are things that happen that just help symbolize what the issues are.
The differences.
And, just that kind of poured some gasoline on it, because common sense is, okay, if he's not allowed to have a squirrel, we're going to come in, we'll get the squirrel. There's surely states in the nation that can house a squirrel, as a pet, but to euthanize it?
Yeah, just...
those things just kind of, the train was already coming, and that just kind of poured some gasoline on the fire and put more steam behind it.
It illustrated, I think, the belief. I saw a commercial where the vice president was speaking, and she said, don't think if you have registered guns that if we can't come in and take them if we want, I can't remember the exact wording, but that's what she said. And then all of a sudden we saw that demonstrated. It wasn't on a gun yet, but it was on, something that they say is illegal, a pet. A guy had it for 10, 12 years, a long time. But they demonstrated that exact, position of the state.
Yeah.
If we decide that that's not cool, then we'll just come in your house and take it and kill it.
Yes.
And I think, just like you said, that resonated with people, because today it's a squirrel. Tomorrow it might be a gun, or who knows what else it could be.
Yeah.
What do you think? We've got the House. We got the Senate. I think we have the House, or we'll keep it. It may be narrow, but we've got the Senate now. Do you think we'll retain the House too?
I don't know. I haven't studied that enough. I mean, I looked early this morning. I think the Senate, there's a couple more that we should have kept, or should have won, but we didn't. But we'll have the majority there, which will be very important because you have folks like Clarence Thomas sitting on the Supreme Court, who's ready to go home.
Yeah.
Alito, and so with the Senate and the president, we'll get some good Supreme Court nominees and be able to get them through.
Were we not able to get like 50? Have we not got up to maybe 52, 53? We were 51, and I've not been paying a whole lot of attention, but they were optimistic that we might pick up 2, maybe 3 more.
I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
Because if we can get up to 54, he should be able to get his cabinet in. He should be able to get things done. Tracy and I were talking last night. He can go through his presidency without having to worry about investigations. He can go be the president, and if he wants to appoint somebody, he wants to get something done. If he Supreme Court, he'll have not a vast majority, but a large enough majority.
Yes.
That I think he'd get it through without any problems.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful. House, Senate, and that.
Well, I'm kind of a nerd on kind of just looking at the numbers and everything when it all shakes out. I'm really curious to see a lot of the factors and some of the exit polling and what was really on people's mind. I do think there's a couple things that are very interesting is the way the way people get information anymore.
Yeah.
And, in the lead up to the election, there have been several meetings where I'm out of town, and so afterwards, we may go out and have a burger, wings, or something.
Mm-hmm.
And, generally we stay away from the political discussions. But when you're because it'll be a bipartisan group of people.
Sure.
You may have Democrat mayors, Republican mayors, some folks that are, I don't even know. I've never known their politics.
Sure.
And all of a sudden, the presidential stuff is coming up. And I'm sitting there thinking, they're reading the same news I am. And I got that off of this, and I got this off of Instagram.
Sure.
And in a 30-second blip. And so the world is really interesting to me what's happening with the media. And so I'm kind of interested there. And then really, we've lived through, Ron, the change. My dad was a Democrat. The majority of the South was Democrat. The parties, the party ID flipped because really the party platforms flipped.
Yes.
And in this particular election, you really had folks that were traditionally like Robert F. Kennedy, who were pacifists and anti-war. And you now have Trump being, strength. That he'll do what he needs to do to protect America and to protect peace, but not necessarily pro-war. And I know pro-war might be a little bit of an exaggerated statement, but you look at, Dick Cheney aligning with, Ms. Harris, and that's it's very different. And so I'm really, what's going on? Is this a realignment election? What's happening?
I couldn't figure that out.
Yeah.
I mean, you go back and look at George W. Bush, his policies and the things that he ran on. It was way closer to what Donald Trump runs on, way closer. In fact, very similar. A little more political tone and polished tone from W. But and Cheney, who was his vice president, I think he did it just because his daughter did it. I think he did it to bolster, to try and bolster her. Maybe, I don't know, parents and kids. But she never said a word to me that I thought would appeal to Dick Cheney.
Yeah, I know.
So I couldn't put that together. But I think also people looked at that and I think they just felt like it was piling on. They felt like that Donald Trump had been persecuted. Mm-hmm. And then here they've got somebody, probably that people that voted for Trump in 16 and 20 had voted for Dick Cheney back when he ran. And then all of a sudden, he's leaving the party. I think they just felt like that maybe was one more thing that people, the establishment, the swamp was trying to do to him. And I think that helped him. I really do.
Well, I think, one of the and it's still a problem at this very moment. President Biden, has health issues.
Absolutely.
And everyone in America saw it.
Yeah.
And to be told that we're just being partisan or, again, hateful. No, I mean, I felt like it was cruel. I really do. I still feel this way. It was cruel to put him out there and have him read the teleprompters. And I know there was a lot of comedy about it, but I felt like it was cruel. Yeah. Here's a man who clearly on this day, and that is, mental decline. That's how it is. Some days you're good and you're good to go, and some days you're not.
Yeah.
And on the days, he wasn't, he shouldn't have been ever put in front of a microphone.
I agree.
And I think that was a level of cruelty. So,
I had it, again, it's just Ron talking, but I felt like when they put him out there for the debate, obviously they had to know he wasn't having a good day. I almost feel like that they were trying to anoint Ms. Harris at the moment. I think they did that knowingly that he was going to stumble and to move her into it. Again, I just don't understand the thinking, because I don't care who it is. If I loved the candidate and they forced him on us without having an election or without asking us, I would still be upset about that.
Yeah.
I mean, even if it was Donald Trump and I loved him and he won and he was the president, I still would be upset about not having a voice in picking and listening to the other options that I had. I enjoyed listening to Ron DeSantis. I think Ron DeSantis has a bright future in politics. I got to hear about him because we had a primary, a hard-fought primary. The Democrats didn't get that. They didn't have that option.
And I think at the highest levels, they had some internal debates.
Oh, I'm
sure. There were folks at the high levels of the Democrat Party who felt like they understood there wasn't time to go and have new elections, but maybe there should have been some type of process where people had input or something at the convention, and obviously the folks that were against that won out, and it was just a coronation, and that probably hurt them as well, Ron. I agree with you.
I had a friend text me this morning and said, I'm going to watch The View for the first time ever. I can't imagine. I'm sure it's going to be more of, men bad, but who knows? It's just it's a good day for the country. And I know there are a lot of people hurting right now and upset, and maybe even some of them that are, frightened and worried. And all I can say is just go back to your memories on Facebook to 2016 and look forward. You were okay. You're going to be okay through this one, and the country's going to be better. And at the end of the day, if the country's better, everybody's better.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, as the water rises, all the boats will rise.
Yes.
And, what do you think about J.D. Vance? Are we going to take calls? Maybe later on, but tell them just keep listening. What do you think about J.D. Vance?
Oh, gosh. I really like him. So years ago when the book Hillbilly Elegy came out, I read that when it came out, and I need to go back and read it again now that he's the vice president and refresh my memory. Lee put on the movie, which I didn't get to watch from the very beginning. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yes, I have.
But, oh, my goodness, that Amy Adams was great.
Yes.
Glenn Close is phenomenal. Yeah. But I can remember after I read it telling my mom about it, and I said, oh, my gosh, it's so, it's so us. It's so Appalachia. You have just this very hard grandmother, sometimes with some extremely salty language, but, loves God, loves America, wanted her grandson to be the best he could be. And I love the story. I think he, there are a lot of challenges that face us all.
Yeah.
And I don't know, there's something so powerful about that, Ron, seeing someone like him ascend to the vice presidency.
Absolutely.
It is a story of hope and perseverance and commitment and hard work and all of those things.
And it all paid off.
I just love it.
I do too. It is the American dream.
Yes.
It's the absolute, it's what the whole country was founded on. Tracy's from Middletown.
Oh, okay. I did not know that.
She is. She's from Middletown. She moved here when she was young. And she told me, she said, her father and her were estranged. He passed away when she was very young, and so she didn't know him very well. But she's been doing research, and she said, I think his sister or half-sister, I can't remember, she thinks that they're related. So, she's done it back. His mom was a Lewis, and her dad was a Lewis. But anyway, so she's been doing genealogy, looking to see that, because she's from day one she was like, he's got to pick this guy. He's got to pick fans, and I hadn't seen the movie or heard the book or anything. She was like, watch this, and I watched it, and it was very powerful. It is very powerful.
One of the things about the book as opposed to the movie, or at least the part of the movie I saw, it's very difficult to get, I don't know how to convey this. The context of the story is really about, opportunity. And this could even apply to Michigan, where the automotive industry moved out, and then what happens to your community. Yeah. There's a couple of books that I've read. One's Dreamland, and I can't remember what his follow-up book is called. And I've got several, if anybody out in the listening audience wants to read one, I kind of buy copies and give them out. It helps people understand the opiate addiction issue and how it happened. And a lot of it is tied to work, community vulnerability when the jobs move away. And that was really JD's story, is the family, moving, the community.
The hard times of the community bled into the family and trickled down into the children, and the mother got caught up in substance abuse. When there's no hope, people numb themselves. Or when they don't see the hope. And that's the whole. You know what I mean? That's what it is. You people don't want to be surrounded by misery. And they take a way out. And for a lot of people, it was accidental that they became addicted to it. For some people, it was to escape.
Absolutely.
But it's you're right. It's the same thing. Same thing here in our mountains as it is up there in that part of Appalachia.
Absolutely.
But it's a tremendous story. I think he's going to be a great vice president. Obviously, I believe he'll depending on all that they get accomplished, he'll probably run in 4 years, and I'm excited to see it. So it's a good day. Let me ask you this. I had said this. What do you think? Now, we talked about Kennedy, President Trump bringing him into the fold, and Elon Musk and Tulsi Gabbard, all three of which have at one time or another professed to be Democrats and held that. And then Trump didn't go to them and say, I think Kennedy's probably still a Democrat. I don't know if he changed his affiliation. I know Gabbard did. Elon, I think he did. I don't recall. But what do you think, what do you think about the inclusiveness that Trump did in his campaign? Was it good? Or I've actually heard some people that were frustrated because they thought they don't have a place in our party. And I was thinking, I think they do. But and I'm leading you to another question. But,
sure.
But what do you think about that, just in general, bringing those people in?
Oh goodness. Well, I guess going back a few minutes ago where I talked about, I'm very interested to see a lot of the demographics, the numbers, some of the exit poll interviews. I mean, I think you have some realignment going on.
Gotcha.
And, I look, sometimes I don't get to watch a lot of TV, but sometimes I'll watch the Fox where Harold Ford Jr. is on the round table there. And Harold Ford Jr., and I used to write this back in the day in a column, Ron. I would love to be back in a time, and maybe this is just me, I'm sure there are people out there saying, oh gosh, this is so arrogant and narrow-minded of her. I would love to be back in a place where the Democrat Party is saying, I love God, I love America, and the Republican Party is saying, I love God, I love America. And then let's get into some differences about how we handle Social Security, how we handle what's the next. And, we've not tackled immigration reform for decades. It's a long time coming. Those are real issues to debate. And I think what has happened with the Democrat Party is people see it, a lot of blaming of America.
Yeah.
Well, and let's, from a policy standpoint, if we're going to do something and do a root cause analysis, then what they're saying, it just goes back to what we all know. It's the root problem of man. I mean, sometimes man chooses a dark path.
Yeah, we're sinful by nature. Yes.
Sometimes he chooses. And it's like, how much do you want to, continue to beat on us and hold us accountable? I mean, yes, we did some wrong, and we've admitted we've done some wrong. So, and what next? You just won't let it go, and so I think there's some of that going on. It's going to be interesting to me to see what happens. I mean, even in the state of Tennessee, you have different factions within the Republican Party.
Harold Ford sounds more. I mean, he doesn't sound like the Democratic Party.
No, he does
today.
not. No.
But he is a Democrat.
He is, and they would be wise to follow his lead.
I agree, and I think he'll run. I think he'll run for something again one day. But that's not the party. I'm surprised that he's still. I mean, I'm surprised the party recognizes him or he recognizes them as part of their group because he doesn't agree with it. And I feel like the party left a lot of people, the Gabberts and the Kennedy and him, and some of our local people too. We've talked about it before. Tim Shelton sat right there where you're sitting and said, I didn't just make a decision to be a Republican. The Democratic Party changed. It wasn't what I grew up. It wasn't my values anymore.
Right.
Some of the policy maybe, but the values of the party seemed to change.
Yes.
And that's what I think. I think a lot of people. I was just going to lead you to this because I got embroiled in a conversation about it and back and forth, whatever, with the head of our party about Chief Scarborough running.
Okay.
And that was kind of what I said. I said, why are we inclusive, and why are we so excited about Tulsi Gabbard making a statement? I now switched this week to Republican, and that's great. And we applaud it and we want it. But when it happened on a local scene, it was like, no. You've only, whatever they did. They, he met all the regulations. I just didn't understand it, and I just kind of what do you think about that? Are we growing our party without prostituting our beliefs? Can we do that? Or is it just that the Democrats have went so crazy that, the rats are jumping off the sinking ship and putting an R next to their name?
Oh, I think you have a little bit of both of that.
Okay.
So, I think you have some folks that... and
I didn't mean to call Democrats rats. I just...
yeah. And, I think... you're always going to have, politician is a dirty word, Ron. In church, a lot of times the pastor, he'll throw some shots at the politicians, and I'm sitting there going, oh, God,
Mm-hmm.
Here I am. I fit that,
I am a politician.
That's my title. There are going to be people that are insincere and that run as a Republican because they're assessing the ground game.
Gotcha.
And they're looking at the numbers, and they're not a fool, they're not a dummy, and they're going to say the only way I can win is if I put an R by my name.
Sure.
And I think we can see that, without going through some of the campaigns and some of the elections, we can see where a straight party ticket, maybe folks that didn't invest in a campaign or nobody knew who they were, but somehow they end up in office because they had an R by their name in this particular election. And we can go back in time, back in the heyday of the Democrat Party.
Sure.
It wasn't that long ago when the courthouse was all Dems.
Oh, I know. Dave Bowen.
And, Patsy Stair was...
the sole Republican.
Yes. So... there is some of that. So I think there are some, and then there are a lot of converts.
Sure.
And so I can't speak to the chairwoman's mindset. She would have to answer that, and I don't want to put words into her mouth or thoughts. My own particular issue and, was what I experienced with myself, which were avowed activist Democrats coming into the primary and encouraging people to vote against me, and they called me a Trumpist and everything else.
I remember down at the video from the Wildcat Den. I remember that very clearly, and I referenced that.
Yes. Well, and at that time, the chairman of the party called in on your show, and I used that audio. I didn't ever want to go negative, but I had to share, the negative attacks were starting to stick, and I had to tell the voters, okay, here's what's happening. And I cited your audio on my, because you got to put evidence on there. With Rick, I don't know Rick enough to judge and say that I don't think he's sincere. I don't know him enough. I dealt with him as the police chief. We've had a couple of meetings. I do know that on the political landscape, he's going to get to Nashville. There's going to be a lot of votes that are going to be made, and I think at that point we'll learn more about Rick, and he'll find his way. I mean, I think he's been a police chief for a very long time, then moved over to UT and has done a lot of training, and so I don't know how much political exposure there is with a lot of what's going on in Nashville.
I know he worked really hard a lot with Mr. Boyd's campaign, which you were involved some in too, and I know he did that, and I would hope, I don't know, with his affiliation with the state, I was hoping that maybe some state contacts or some people, but I think there's going to be a learning curve. There'd be a learning curve no matter who the freshman is. There's going to be a learning curve, but I'm cautious. I'm optimistic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And he's a friend of mine. I'm talking politics. He's a friend of mine. We've been friends for a long, long time, probably pushing over 30 years. And so, that weighs a lot too, because you know somebody, you know what I mean? Or you think you do.
Yes.
But I felt, everybody knows what I feel because I say it. You know what I mean? I felt like it was hypocritical to say, this is wonderful. We're welcoming. We're bringing in these Democrats. Except in Anderson County, we don't want to do that. Even when the participant went through the steps, met with the chairwoman prior to doing any of that to clear the way, and then once got the nomination, it was like all hell broke loose. So that was just, again, that's Ron talking. That's not the radio. That's nothing else. But and everybody that listens to me knows how I feel on that. But I just kind of wanted to get a perspective, because I believe, this is what I believe. I feel like if you have a good idea, a lot of people have had great ideas, but they couldn't communicate it, right? And then somebody else, that idea pops up that can communicate it, and all of a sudden they take it and run and make $1 billion with it. So I feel like if the Republican Party can communicate our ideas, they are good ideas. They're good ideas for the country. They're not racist. They're not homophobic. They're good ideas. And I think if you can communicate that in an honest dialogue with somebody that's willing to listen and talk back and forth to you, you have a good opportunity of convincing that person to evaluate their partisanship.
Absolutely.
And so that's my thing. I say, we've got a great platform. Everybody ought to want to get on it, So whatever we got to do to vet people or whatever, I just feel like that the Republican Party has a great platform. It has a tremendous desire to see everybody do well. And when you tell that to somebody, you disagree with that? No, I don't disagree with that. Okay, well, then come on over on this train,
Well, sometimes, I look back. I've been active in the Republican Party for a very long time. So I got engaged it was Ronald Reagan who made me a Republican in college. Mm-hmm. And when I was at MTSU, I got involved. There were only very few of us in the college Republicans. I worked for the local Republican Party in Murfreesboro, knocked on doors for candidates. That was during the Bush-Dukakis race. I still have some memorabilia from that. But on election night, my habit was losing. And it was all these people, you put all this effort in and you end up losing. But the party became a majority party. And I think, Ron, what happens, and this is a little bit of a curse of being the majority, is then you start fighting each other.
That's true.
It
makes sense.
Happened to the Democrats back in the day. They have when you're minority and you're fighting against the Goliath, you're united.
Yes.
But when you're the majority, then you start fighting each other for who's going to sit, at the top of the heap or whatever. And I'll never forget a speech many years ago as we were entering this very powerful majority for the state of Tennessee, and Jim Henry came and spoke to the party, and he said, let me just tell you, here's what you need to look out for. And it was that internal fighting, and that's how you lose a majority. And, those are some sage words of advice.
Absolutely.
And when you bring more folks in, so you're talking about bringing in Robert F. Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard, those are great things, to your point. I look at Rush Limbaugh. I loved Rush.
Amen.
One of the things about Rush that was so wonderful is Rush held beliefs. He was also willing to listen.
Mm-hmm.
He loved people. And it took a lot for him to hang up on someone on the airwaves.
Yes.
But he loved to educate them about the beliefs. And that's our job as the party, is to educate. There are some things that we're going to agree to disagree on. But when you get into what I call a pharisaical mindset, where it's you absolutely have to believe this in order to be a Republican. I mean, I think there are a few core issues. I don't think America surrendering our sovereignty to a world government is ever going to fly in the Republican Party. No. And if that's your core belief, you're probably not going to fit with us.
Second Amendment's going to be strong in the Republican Party. Yeah.
I mean, there's some core things, but sometimes we just get so in the weeds, and we need a refocus. And what are we fighting for? I mean, what is this about? And so that's just it's the nature of man and political parties and all of that. And I do think you can see I think there is, especially in some states, some people that are frustrated even with the two-party system. And that's up to the parties to kind of get things right and realign and recenter their messaging and maybe stop being so inward focused, and again get back to what are your goals, what are you trying to accomplish as a party.
I've sometimes said that some folks are dealing with Christianity. Sometimes they're so heavenly minded, they're no earthly good. And I thought that about our party. Sometimes we are so, the intentions are perfect, they're flawless. But I think sometimes we got so wrapped up in that we've lost, if your goal and my goal for moving a car out there are the same, we can go move that car and we have success. When we leave, we might have a difference of opinion about something else, but we combine together to do something that was good or whatever we set out to do. And it's kind of what I focus on. You know what I mean? Let's find what we have in common. Let's make sure that we can coexist with, that we don't have diametric opposition on two, things that we can't get along with. And at that point, educate people, debate people, and bring them into the fold.
Yeah.
Educate them as to why you think they should think the way we do. And our party right now, I think we got it going on. I mean,
Yes.
We do right now. So, and with Trump as leader, he's a bull in a china shop, but he's exactly what we wanted, exactly what we needed, and this country spoke loud and clear.
It's going to be interesting to watch, too, what's going to happen in the state of Tennessee. I mean, I hear all these folks with their predictions. Is Senator Haggerty going to go be in the Trump administration? Is Senator Blackburn? Who will appoint who? What will happen? What
does the governor get to do that? If one of those go into a cabinet position, does the governor?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
there could be a lot of, and then you have a governor's race coming up. And so who ends up running for governor may hinge on what happens with Senator Haggerty or Senator Blackburn. Did they move? Does something happen? I mean, there's a lot of predictions out there. Yeah.
A lot of dominoes that could fall.
Yes.
I didn't think about that, but one of the things that I saw Steve Scalise say, he felt like in the Senate and in Congress, as much cushion as we could get, because he said people are going to be exiting to go help the president. He felt like, there was some brilliant people the president would probably take with him. So he wanted enough people to replace, to be able to replace that. I'm, like I said, I'm very optimistic. I think things are moving in the right direction. Last night was a good night at the Meredith household, I can tell you that. Anderson County government. You know what? You referenced a while back that very tumultuous campaign you ran through, Steve. And at that time in this county, it seems like everybody was fighting about everything. Yeah. You could say the sky was blue, and folks would sit up and say, that's not really blue. That's more of a hazy green, And that seemed, I think it was maybe that election. I think maybe that election was the turning point on that. And it seemed like everybody kind of said, all right, let's take our ideas, let's put them together, and let's work together to get the best things done that we can for the county. And that since then, and correct me if I'm wrong, we've seemed to have had a much better working environment, and you guys have got a lot accomplished, and the county's in a pretty good position. Would that be a fair statement? Absolutely, a very fair statement. Good. So financially, Anderson County is in a great position. One of the things that will be kind of rough, and Johnny Alley will probably kill me for saying this on the air, but sorry, Johnny. Next year's reappraisal year, and Anderson County land values we're on a 5-year reappraisal cycle, and our values have shot up. And I don't want to, our household income has gone up. There are a lot of hurting people out there. So I'm not saying that in order to dismiss that, I am aware of hurting people and a lot of needs. Yes. But there has also been a lot of growth and a lot of business and industry. There have been a lot of improvements we've made at across the board. Yes. Whether it's the sheriff's department adding more patrol deputies, wages, facilities, park improvements. I mean, there have been a lot of things that have happened to advance the county. Our jobs are, we still do very well in that area. There's a lot going on, and we can talk about this at some point if you want, but with nuclear, with Oak Ridge, a lot of growth is happening in Oak Ridge. Yes. And all of that bleeds over to the county. For instance, the big announcement, the largest in Tennessee history with Orano, the uranium enrichment facility in Roane County. That's DOE land. That's going to come on the books. It's going to put people to work. It's billions of dollars in investment. That bleeds over into our county, too. Absolutely. It bleeds over into the region. There are a lot of things that we've done working together with other governments. They might just be one-offs or, a collaboration here, a collaboration there, paving an industrial park with the city of Clinton. There are great private things happening. Aspire Park is just phenomenal. Yeah. I mean, absolutely phenomenal. And that is free to the citizens. Yeah. There, with some of this also comes challenges. So you see a lot of people coming to our county. Our tourism has grown. I know Stephanie comes on here and talks with you, Ron. But then there are things that end up coming out of that, like shoreline erosion. And, we got to put some investment into fixing that or providing some better facilities and amenities. But I think all of those things are good for the people that live here. Sure.
In my opinion, we haven't seen a lot of change in some of the public amenities over the years, and we're getting to a point where we're getting those investment dollars. They're started, we're moving in that direction. The plans are in place, and I think the community needs some of that as well. You've got energy upgrades that take money from utility bills, and they end up getting put back into the schools for improvements at our facilities. I know the county is, Dr. Parrott and the school board have been working on a new school at Claxton Elementary. All these things trigger changes. TDOT, the state of Tennessee's put a lot of investment in Anderson County. There's a expansion of Edgemore Road that's going to be coming soon. I just got, for instance, a letter yesterday on the historic preservation and being a consulting party on that, because that project is moving. It'll put sidewalks there. It'll have safety improvements. It'll allow for opportunity for growth.
Sure.
I mean, just a lot of good stuff happening.
And that's good. Do you feel like that our body decided to start working together as opposed to picking apart? Is that what you credit? Or do you just what do you credit the growth and the positive things that have come? What do you credit that to?
Well, I think, I don't know. I mean, I can't get into the mind of everyone. I do have a couple of theories. Some of it was just politics, so I think it might even go back generationally. I mean, my father was very active.
Oh, yeah. Was a big friend of the radio station.
And, and he even did things like, I ran across, just filing some old stuff away one day. I ran across I was doing research on one of the industrial parks to try to get something that we were working on, so I went back and did the legacy research, and there was a lawsuit in there. And so I'm reading this lawsuit, and and then I look, and it's actually my dad who had filed the law. And I was, wow, I didn't know my dad tried to fight the establishment of this industrial park. So I think some of it was, could have even gone back to legacy politics with my dad. I mean, he was a county commissioner. He was a newspaper man.
Outspoken.
Very outspoken. I always said, you were never lukewarm about my dad. You loved him or you hated him. Yeah. But not many people had I don't know about Ernie. Robert McCamey did tell me recently, we were at a Tennessee County Services Association meeting, and we were, at the end of the day, we were all eating together, and he said, well, I'm going to go see the Hardys here that's 1.6 miles from the hotel. I'm going to go over there in the morning and take some pictures and send them back to my crew at the Clinton Hardys. And so there were a couple commissioners there that didn't understand the Hardys. And I said, well, that's where the politics happens.
Yeah, that's where everything's done.
Robert keeps his office there. And if you want to meet with him, you can go, he'll say, step into my office, and you can go into the corner. And Robert said, well, it's actually your dad that started the Hardys round table. And I did not know that.
Really?
And he said, yeah, he was running for some office at one point, and someone said, well, Ernie, how do I get in touch with you? And he said, www.hardys.com. So I think some of it, Ron, I mean, my theory, if I were writing a book about it, was they just didn't want me there.
Yeah.
And so a lot of what happened at commission was just to maneuver to get me or have me fail or get me in trouble.
Sure.
In order to get me out of there. And I go back to, I think back on, the law director's position. I mean, there were times that because I was involved in the Republican Party, I would go to commission. And I can think one time I went, and Steve Cohen, who was a Democrat, had come up with some legislation for the state of Tennessee regarding conflicts of interest. And I thought it was a good bill, and I took it to county commission and spoke in front of county commission. And I remember when they were putting the law director's position in place, and I went up, and I was opposed to that. And I said, I think this will be one of the worst mistakes you ever make. And I talked to Dave Clark about it, and I remember vividly being out in the hall talking to Jim Vines about it, saying, this is going to grow beyond what you all ever envision. I mean, it's just the way it's being structured, and we argued about that. And so I would just say that my involvement, I wrote in the paper, I was just viewed as a political presence, and I think I had to prove out over time, Ron, that yes, I have political views, but when it comes to governing, I'm going to govern, and I'm not going to stand up in front of commission and do political things. We need to fix this, fix this issue. Sure. We need to pursue this grant. We need to prevent, this opiate overdose. We need to make sure ambulances are running. And I think, and I just could be totally wrong, this is just my guess, I think over time I was able to prove that out.
The proof. Yeah, the proof is in the pudding.
But when it comes to local government, we've got to govern.
Sure.
And
I think we have that right now. Yeah. I really do, because you have Democrats and Republicans both that serve on our commission. But when you look at them make a decision about what we need to do for schools or police or sheriff's department, whatever, you don't see any of that divide. No. And that's good.
Yes.
A good thing. All of it's positive. I mean, because I remember what a weight it was that, we were intricately involved in that campaign. We were right in the middle of the election.
Yeah.
And I remember that your opponent wouldn't come on the radio, didn't. And I was frustrated about that. But I just remember that night what a relief and what a weight it was, for you to win that. And it seemed like, I don't know, it just seemed like that softened everybody. You know what I mean? It gave them a minute.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it was, I don't know. It was I think it was a good moment for the county. I think that you won an election that was bet against really hard.
Yeah.
You narrowly won it, but you won it decisively. I mean, there was no questions about it. And I just think folks went, all right, it's time to put up a lot of the tomfoolery and let's see where we can find ways to work. And they did. And I've always applauded them for that, because we're sitting here today and you're warning about how much our values have went up in the county. It's a good thing when somebody's house is worth a whole lot more now.
Yeah.
If it gets reappraised and their taxes change, they might not like it, but if they put it up for sale, then they're going to be very happy.
Well, the home ownership is also an investment, and you want your investment to appreciate in value. Yeah. And so, to your point, Ron, that's... Yeah.
Well, we've grown. The proof is in the pudding. We go back to that date and come to this date, and you look at the values, look at the businesses, look at I-70, the interstate down here, look at the growth that we've had, and we wouldn't have that without you and commission working together to make a lot of things happen.
Yeah.
You remember we've had, TIF grants. We had conversations about TIF grants and all this good stuff. I'm thinking back over the years, all the conversations all the political conversations that we've had and agreements and or disagreements that we've had. But in the end, it's all panned out, and the county's in a much better position.
I think so too. And, one of the, and you do a great job of highlighting this on your program. One of the awesome things I love about our county is when there's an issue or a need or a young person with cancer or something where the community gets together and highlights it, I think our county absolutely rocks.
Oh, yeah.
We come together like nobody's business. And, if there are differences, everybody puts them aside and just jumps in to help and get behind it. And I love that about Anderson County.
Oh, yeah.
It's just good people.
I tell people all the time, we have some of the most generous people. We've got people that do things. I know of things that some of our wealthier citizens have done for others and done for community. And they found out that I knew or I was there when it happened. They were like, please don't say anything about that.
Yeah.
They don't want to be, they're doing God's work, but they don't want a lot of people to know about it.
Yeah.
When you have that, that's character. When you do something without people looking, then it's good. And we got a lot of people that do that around here.
Yeah.
And I know because, I've had people call in here to the radio station, and they've had a sad story, hard time. I can remember a time that somebody called, and they on the air, and they were like, it's a person that I know well. They're sleeping in their car with a 3-year-old kid at the Walmart, and it was coming up on Christmas. And I was like, let me see what I can do. And before I could make any telephone calls to try and find somebody, I had like 5 people that say, hey, where was that? Where can we go help them?
Yeah.
And by the time, I didn't know who to call. So I called, it might have been Vaughn. It was either Rick or Vaughn at the police department. I said, I don't know what to do. They said, this person's up there. And I said, can you just see if it's legitimate? And by the time they got there, they were like, man, they've already had like 5 or 6 people come by and help them. It's legitimate, and they're good, but they're getting help. It's just that people step up. They step up because we've been blessed, and hopefully we can help somebody else. Where are we going in the county? What's coming up? I mean, you've got, with growth, infrastructure.
Yes.
And with infrastructure construction, I look up at the interstate when Anderson County School's getting out, and the plant traffic's coming through. How are we combined with the cities preparing to handle what I believe is going to be some pretty substantial growth?
Oh, goodness. I mean, it does weigh on me. We were looking at, and Tim Isabel likes to point this out, how we had a housing workshop many years ago and trying to understand why people weren't building in our community. And then it's just like all of a sudden we're having all these people wanting to build in our community.
Yes.
And so I think we've got the county commissioners did a first strategic workshop where they just kind of went to a whiteboard and put all of their thoughts and ideas on the board. And then, where do they want to focus some priorities? They've had another follow-up. One of the big issues that came out as part of that was a need to really do some more in the planning space in terms of, some of the issues that the commissioners face. Commission is charged with making the decision for a zoning change. And for years, that was, it was once in a blue moon. It wasn't a big issue. And all of a sudden, you have folks selling their property. There's developers here that are looking. And so
farms turn into subdivisions.
Yes. Yeah. And so that has come up quite a bit and, come in front of commission. And so the commissioners and the planning commissioners have had a couple of joint meetings. I think the first land use or comprehensive plan for Anderson County was like 1982. I think they did a brush up in 92. So several years ago, we went through the process. I think, if memory serves me correctly, Ron, we did a land use starting in 2018. And I know this is all government nerd stuff, but it basically puts in one document, here's the farmland, and here's where our industrial centers are, and here are our assets, and here's what our county looks like. And from there, then you build on that with what your how we address things like infrastructure. Where do we, want subdivisions? There is a need for more work in that area and a desire from several on county commission to do more work in that area. So we're
public-private kind of merger to I don't know, recruit may not be the right word, but attract people to the county.
Yeah. And how do we balance it? So we absolutely have a need for housing. And one of our planning commissioners at the last joint meeting, as an example, he asked this question, what does the county want? What do the county commissioners want?
That's a good question.
And so we know that there is a need for affordable housing. And when you look at that, what are the answers? Does that mean subsidy? Does it mean reducing lot size to where you can just build
More
smaller homes? And, folks tend to look at it as, well, if you reduce the lot size, you're just making the developers richer. No, they've got their profit margin.
Sure.
Maybe it does.
But it also provides a need. That's what makes people rich. There's a need, and they service it.
But they can also sell it for a lower amount. It doesn't necessarily equate to maximum profits.
Sure.
It might be that they can build, and they know there's a market. They can easily sell a lower priced home.
I was talking to David Crowley the other day, and he's built these houses right here going toward Mariner Point over on the right side.
Okay, I didn't realize that was him.
Okay. Oh, yeah, he did. And I think there are 4, and all 4 were sold before they even broke ground.
I can see that, yeah.
He was telling me, I hope you don't get mad at me saying this, but he was like, I'm not going to do that anymore. I said, you're not going to do what? He said, sell them before I build them. I said, why? He goes, because I become somebody's personal decorator. They're calling and saying, we changed our mind on these cabinets, and we did this and we did that. But at the same time, he was grateful that, he got the land, boom. And I think they're 1,200. They're not big houses. They're 1,200 square foot houses, like 269, 279. I can't remember what he told me, but put them out there and gone.
Yes,
that's how big the need is, and that's that there is a big need, and so if you change some of the zoning where you could build more, then obviously you attract the contractors to build more, and then I don't know. There's going to be a lot of people that have the differing opinions. Yeah. Do we do that? Do we clutter up some of the pretty areas? But I think what has to happen is we have to accept growth is going to come regardless, but it needs to be controlled growth, and it needs to be growth at the county. Yes. I always harken back to talking to a lady that was the city manager in Pigeon Forge and helped us some with Rocky Top, saying that when that took off, they were so blindsided. They never even had a code for building a 3-story or 4-story building, and all of a sudden one's going up.
Right.
And she said literally they were changing codes and readjusting sometimes on a weekly basis, to try and accommodate the growth. And so that was, I just said, that's always set with me. It's like growth is going to come.
Yes.
When you have something, growth is going to come. And it's just getting out there and controlling it, and so that the people that are doing the building are happy and the people that are buying the stuff is happy. And that's got to be a pretty hard balancing act. I don't know. But that's, that's what you guys are tasked to do.
I know. And it's, I serve on TASER, which is the Tennessee Advisory Tennessee Advisory Commission on Intergovernmental Relations.
Yeah, that
one. Oh, gosh, it's a mouthful. But
TASER.
What they do is the state legislature will send issues over to TASER, and then there's a team of people that study the issue. And there might be something where so affordable housing is one of the issues that the legislature sent over to TASER to study. And they have researchers that gather all the data. We interview. We have testimony panels. You'll have different folks from developers to HUD to talk about the issue. And then the goal is to produce a report that has data to give to the legislature. And then also, if they have ideas, to kind of vet those ideas and tell them, what we find in other states or other localities, and, would this work in Tennessee?
Sure.
Or here's something you could do. And it's never to tell them what to do. It's just, here's what you could do. This might work. But the issue is absolutely massive in the state of Tennessee, and a lot of it is, people coming here, but, a lot of it is people have gotten out of the building business. And one of the points that was interesting to me, and I know, several folks looked at me kind of sideways because I said it. 25%, one of the panelists there had data, and I don't know what the Tennessee specific data is, but this was a nationwide number, that 25% of the cost of an apartment building or a home was tied up somehow and originates back to government and government regulation. And so for your safety, you have to come in and do XYZ and pay this. And for a solid structure, then you need to come in and do XYZ and pay for this. And so, my statements, I'm sure, were interpreted to be political, but I'm saying, why are we talking about increasing subsidies? This is a shell game in essence. We're charging them
and then
25%,
giving it back
and then we're going to stand up an organization and employ a bunch of folks, and then we're going to go through an appropriation process, and we're going to give this organization a bunch of money so that they can subsidize the 25%
we just took away.
And so why not just lower the cost
of doing business
and at least cut out the middleman for but I don't know.
Well,
there's no easy answers in everything you do in government. I always say it's like the Shriners at the fair doing the balloon. You squeeze one side and something else pops out the other, and you got to tackle that next.
I saw Myron Iwanski the other day. I aggravate him every time I see him. I'm like, hey, when we raise the taxes for that industrial property that we're going to find, have we found that yet? Is that 3? He was like, no, because I argued with him right here. I was like, because I was against that wholeheartedly. I don't think you raise taxes on something that might come down the path later. I think that if it comes down the path and it's an urgent need, you take that to the citizens and say, we found this property, we need it. This is why we're going to do what we're doing, which is raise your tax. You don't raise it in hopes for it. And I've asked Robert a couple times, how much is left of that? He's like, oh, it's, they're using it. It's not,
Yeah.
But there was some glimmer of what you're talking about is trying to get out in front of some of this stuff before, but again, we raise taxes on the citizens to do it. And I know when I did my subdivision across the river, I don't remember the exact cost, but there was a lot of hoops to jump through with sewer and electric.
Yes.
And I can remember CUB coming in there like, there are 13 taps wrong. Or 13 taps that are out of ordinance, or I can't remember, having to go back and do it, and the cost, that, is a huge cost. I mean, some of that you have to do, but you're right, there are so many things that people are asked to do to be in compliance.
Yeah.
And then we turn around and they say, we're in compliance, we're going to build this apartment, and can you help subsidize it if we rent to these, this group of people?
Right.
They give us the money, and then we turn around and funnel it right back to them. It would be more streamlined if you could cut that out, and people, they still got to follow the rules. I mean, the rules are the rules, whatever we set forth, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're not saying cut corners, just cut costs.
Well, some of it, too, is just cultural in terms of, I look, I'm going to go back to this election, the presidential election, and men turning out to vote. I think in many ways, we have failed to appreciate a lot of the work that men do.
Sure.
And I'm not saying that a woman, and I want to be clear, I'm not saying a woman can't be a construction worker.
Sure.
There's a young lady that used to come volunteer for the Veterans Breakfast, and she's just a little fireball, Amber, and she was one of KUB's first women linemen.
Got it.
But there are professions that men are attracted to and they're drawn to, and it's in their nature, and they're hardwired for it. And I don't think we've held those positions up enough. And you look at, I was on a nuclear call the other day, and one of the folks was saying, why don't we have enough people in these demand sectors in these particular positions? And, my answer, and I'll just tell you, this gentleman asked like 3 other people. And I said, well, hey, you didn't ask me. And he said, oh, Mayor, I'm sorry. I was planning to ask you. And I said, no, that's okay. But if you look at labor force participation for men, Ron, and I'll show you the picture. It is a trajectory line, absolutely, that is just
declining,
a huge drop off. And there's a gentleman who wrote a book, I think it was back in 2018 or 19, and it's called Men Without Work, and it's just kind of a statistical, I call it a book, but it's really just a bunch of stats with some background and history going back to the Great Depression. Men have withdrawn from the workforce. Now they're doing something, maybe they're not showing up somehow. Maybe they're doing things, cash. Maybe they're not working at all. But what have we as a society done to where they are unplugging? Is it that they don't feel valued?
Well, I think masculinity has become a bad word.
Yeah.
A lot of the things that you talk about men being hardwired for are those more physical, masculine kind of things. And any demonstration of that for the last 4 years, has been condemned. And I feel like, and I know your trajectory is more than just the last 4 years, but I just feel like sometimes, you just don't. It's easier to do something else than to put up with the ridicule and all the other BS.
Well, think about developers, okay, and folks that build apartment complexes and how important that is.
Sure.
And then think about the commentary that you hear about it. It's a rich this person. No, they're dealing with a scale of money, but they've also got banknotes.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know many of them that are able to just go open the checkbook and write the check. It's based on, some of this, and I'm going to use a city. Now, I'm not going to name the city, but their permitting process is so slow now that you have a lot of folks that are moving out of this city. And it's not in Anderson County. They're not building there anymore, because they can't afford they go to the bank, they borrow, they've got a construction timeline that's based on repayment of debt, when they get to open the apartments, when they get to close the note, all of these things. And then when you've got bureaucracy that slows all of that down, then you're stretching out the interest that you're paying. You're not bringing in any revenue. You've got a whole cash flow plan. And, a lot of times the narrative is, well, they're trying to cut corners. They're this, they're rich. I just think we need to appreciate those industries a bit more. We need to appreciate that the lights are on during the storms.
Absolutely.
I say this a lot about TVA when I'm talking nuclear. Winter Storm Elliott, when the ovens went off, a bunch of us lost equipment. My mom lost her range because it was apparently living on a prayer, and then the surge finished her off. That was a wake-up call for us. We're not used to that. California may be used to that. Texas is maybe used to that, but
brownouts and burning out, and we're not. Yeah,
but we're not.
No.
And we look at utilities often like they're self-serving and they're the bad guys. Actually, they're a whole organization of people that are running the lines, repairing the lines, cutting the trees, keeping the lights on.
You've been talking to Greg Fay.
Well, I mean,
it's the truth.
And
absolutely true.
Same with I years ago took the book Men Without Work to a Powell Clint's utility board meeting, and I'm sure they thought, oh, the mayor's a little bit nuts. And I opened the book, I read some stats to them, and I said, there's something that we're not getting right. I know that you all donate to education, and I see your name, Powell Clint Utility District, on various sponsorships, but I believe, looking at this, that our young people need to see your people in action. And the majority of their workforce is a male workforce. Just the nature, men are attracted to that.
Sure.
And so Powell Clint started taking their team and equipment to Bryceville Elementary They put stuff out there on the playground. Boys and girls alike are out there. They're showing them how to do a laser to test for a gas leak. They're letting them climb on, a piece of the heavy equipment. And I think that, we've kind of assumed that young people would understand that's what I could look like when I grow up. But no, I think we need to put it back in front of them and then also honor them. I appreciate Powell Clinch.
Sure.
I appreciate that when it's 10 degrees outside that you all hooked everything up right and I'm warm.
Yeah.
And I'm able to FaceTime with my grandkids. And
if it goes out there, right out there on it.
Yes, they are.
It's amazing. Do you think, trying to pull that back into growth, do you feel like that's an area that is there a connection between that and softening regulations to attract more people to come here and more people to work when they do come here to do it? Is there a correlation between those two at all in your mind?
Can you explain a little bit more?
To appreciate the male workforce and to have more things for them to do, we have to if we had more projects, you have more people working. To get more projects, you're talking about we need to cut some red tape. There's so much red tape that literally a quarter of the cost is given to government for permissions to go build something.
Yes, yeah.
So does any of that tie together in your mind? If we lower regulations, if we find a way to do that, we can build more. If we build more, it attracts more of these type workers. In such, would we find more respect for them?
Yeah. I think it's twofold. I think we need, people like me or county commissioners or elected officials need to actually take the time to express our appreciation for people and acknowledge them and say, I see you.
Yes.
We did a junior ROTC appreciation event for the cadets. This is the third year we've done it. I ran into Cindy Boshears with Congressman Fleischman's office, and Cindy said, Mary, you're not going to believe this. We set one of our all-time records for media impressions on a story. I think she said something like 90,000 views when the congressman spoke to the cadets. And that just blew me away. The point there wasn't anything super spectacular in terms of planning. We gave them a proclamation. Some of our county commissioners came, and we told the young people, we see you.
Yeah.
We acknowledge that you don't have to be joining this program. We know it takes extra work, extra commitment. You're having to be better time managers to balance your homework. Same thing with athletics. Balancing your homework and this extracurricular activity, and you're appreciated. And it doesn't cost a lot to do that, but it has...
it's building.
Has value. I've watched... I always could spot Trey with a band, and I love that we have Channel 95 that highlights young people and because at the end of the day, Ron, isn't everybody searching for meaning?
Absolutely.
And I think we have to tell people that they have meaning, and that's part of our duty as elected official. The other part that you asked about the regulation, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that, we all say 99% of what's the joke about lawyers? 99% give the 1% a bad name. We've become such a litigious society that everything is about avoiding liability.
Yes.
And much of our regulations are based on that.
Just to protect ourselves.
Yes. And so Governor Lee put together the Nuclear Energy Task Force, where he's looking at the future for the state of Tennessee, and he's saying we've got to get nuclear energy on the grid. We've got to ensure Tennessee's, that we have the ability to heat our homes and keep the hospitals running, and then also for future Tennesseans and future economic development and security. And so he put that together. Well, one of the big issues coming out of that council is how do we address the regulatory environment where the United States of America has really been the gigantic obstacle to getting nuclear energy on the grid.
Yeah.
France has been able to do it.
France is 70% nuclear. Their energy. Yes. 70%.
And China, which was building, a coal plant every time we blinked, is now out in front on nuclear. Europe is nuclear, and why can't we do it here? And again, it's that regulation and
regulatory hurdles.
Yes. How can we fix that? Congress actually did some legislation to ask the NRC to look at themselves and do some things, which they have done. And then I know Governor Lee's also working on some of that himself from a state standpoint. But yeah, I mean, we want safety.
Sure.
We clearly want safety. We want to preserve or conserve our environment. But how do we properly balance that with also the immediate needs for the health and wellness of people and the ability to put food on the table and take care of yourselves? And sometimes we lose sight of that. We get so wrapped up on the liability and the safety side that we forget we got to eat.
I remember when there wasn't even a Centennial golf course driving down through there, and a golf course, and then there was 4 townhomes. And today there's, I don't know, probably thousands, including the apartments. And I thought to myself, where are these people coming from? I mean, but they are.
Yeah.
They're coming, and there's a need, and the product is not keeping up with the need. And if it's regulatory issues, it sounds like you can cure a multitude of sins if you can get the regulatory issues, bring more projects, have more men working, people working, and then provide a need that the citizens need.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about this. Switch gears just a little bit. The senior center. You know, that was a big. I was involved in that. You were too, trying to work through mistakes that were made. I go to try and not be crass or whatever. I always say I felt like everybody always had good intentions with the senior center, even when we went into 205 Main. Looking back, I feel like that it was probably more. I mean, there was a lot of politics involved in that too. That was right during that tumultuous time that we're talking about. But now, got the senior center down at Mariner Point. It looks like it's rocking. It looks like it's full. Somebody else said the other day, though, they aren't cooking anymore. Now, can you just kind of give us an update on senior center?
Yeah.
That's under your purview.
So we partner with ETHRA Monday through Friday. We have meals. Mm-hmm. And so we have grown that program. I think the last time I checked in, the enrollment was up to 75 on that. So we do utilize the kitchen. Okay. As far as, just like a home-cooked lasagna and everything else under the sun, no. We're working back into that. Yeah. So this last month, County Commission, we did a transfer to put some funds into a food code. Some of that had been done through just Second Harvest. Wanted a little bit more quality control there in terms of food items being not expired. Gotcha. And some of those things. So, yeah.
Who is the director of the senior center now?
Well, we just have an interim director. That's Robin Popick. She's interim. We have a new health educator. That's Julie Del Vecchio.
Okay.
Yes.
And like I said, it's there at the house, so I drive by it numerous times a day, and the parking lot's full, and they must have taken a little road trip the other day because they all parked their cars. There's a big bus, and a couple of days, then the cars were gone. So I haven't been in the loop with it for a while. It just kind of seems like after the building got there and things got established, it kind of took on a personality and life of its own. And so I just kind of hadn't heard a whole lot. And somebody asked me the other day, why aren't they cooking anymore? I said, well, I didn't know they weren't, but I'll ask when the mayor comes up. So you've answered that. What else do we have going on in the county that's of interest to our citizens, to folks out there that you want to share, just anything you want to share for that matter?
Oh, goodness. So,
I I always say no news is good news.
we've got, we've got American nuclear site cleanup going on.
Is that at Black House Valley?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that'll eventually be cleaned up. And, it's been behind the fence for a long time.
Curiosity, was that the lawsuit your dad filed for Black House Valley? Because I tend to remember when all that was coming about, he had a pretty strong opinion about that.
I don't know. I don't know of anything on that particular site. I know that
it was very controversial at one point, and I just remember him being very involved in that conversation up here.
Well, I know there was with the Blockhouse Valley landfill, which is nearby, there was definitely contamination in there, and the county will have to be in the business of monitoring that for long after you and I are gone, Ron.
That's probably what I'm thinking about was all of that contamination.
I did meet so I did go to commission a couple or 3 months ago and ask for permission to apply for a planning grant for Blockhouse Valley and the American nuclear site, and what we might be able to do there. And I did end up meeting a really neat architect who has done some major stuff from all over, and we got into a discussion. He loves doing storylines, and so I started telling him about Blockhouse Valley, and the area that was the contaminated waste cell is actually very small if you look at the whole 300 acres that the property is, or it's like 292, something like that. But where the cell was, the method of dealing with the contamination was planting of poplar trees. And so they're all uniform in size, and it's really kind of like its own work of art. I mean, I could see photographers in the community wanting to go out there and, do wedding photos or photos with the kids, kind of like they do up at TVA on the Songbird Trail. There's a lot of beautiful trees up there. But commission did authorize that. I went and visited our youngest son, and lives in St. Louis now, and there is a county dump there in St. Louis that they turned into a I'm drawing a blank on what they call it. I can't believe I'm forgetting the name, Ron. It's maybe you can help me remember the word. It's a garden,
like a passive park.
It's kind of. I mean, there's walking trails, and it's not an arboretum. That's the name that's coming to my mind, but that's not what it is. But it's all plants, flowers, trees. They have one building that they use, kind of like a spire, where they can hold events, and you drive up and you kind of go uphill to the top of the waste cell, and they have one building that's just a small educational building that they do classes in, and they let schools use it. And when you go in there, you can see they have they took out a core sample, and you see what's buried underneath.
Oh, wow.
But they turned it into this beautiful garden and turned it over to a nonprofit. And so the nonprofit raises money. They rent the facility out. And this was just a very plain facility. And the director, she shared with me that they charge, $6,000 just to use the room.
Wow.
But it's just, you've got all these beautiful plants and flowers that people donate. So there may be a beautiful tree, and it has a nice little small tag that says donated by Ron Meredith.
Wow.
Or donated in honor of Ron Meredith.
Sure.
And so everything has some kind of public component to it. And I thought, well, that would be cool, if we can cobble some plan together that does have components like that, with some recreation, some gardens. I don't know what it looks like, but the goal would be to do something for the community that doesn't also have a big tax burden on the community. So that's something the commission has said, yeah, Mayor. I showed them a video presentation of that. They love that. They've turned me loose to try to pursue some grants. We've got, we're going to try to do some grants for Lost Bottom Park. We have some work there for an expansion, another expanded boat ramp, kayak launch, ADA, some equipment, doing some parking there. Gibbs Ferry, we finally awarded a contractor to do the work there. And that is one where we've gotten a lot of feedback where people want a pier there. They put their boats in, but you probably see people struggling down there.
Trying to tie it to a tree or what have you. Yes.
And really, we want to improve that. And then long term, be able to, we got a grant that nobody in the state has dealt with before. So we're one of the first to get this. And they're TDOT's kind of working through this with us because they don't know how to do it either. But it is a transportation-related grant with federal highway and federal lands. So that is TVA land, but we lease it from TVA, just a low-cost lease. But we want to be able to connect. That would be kind of a connector to the trail that goes along the river in Oak Ridge on Mountain Lake. So we could do a bike trail from there, but then have the amenities for kayakers, fishermen.
From the Blockhouse Valley area?
No, this would be from Gibbs Ferry on this side. Yeah, so we're looking at both sides. Lost Bottom is on the one side and Gibbs Ferry is on the other. We've got that going on. Bull Run with TVA, we're keeping an eye on that. I know we've got the commissioners have an intergovernmental committee. Commissioner Wandell chairs that one. We keep an eye on what's happening at Bull Run, what's happening at American Nuclear, some of these issues. But Bull Run, sooner rather than later, is getting that facility in shape to be able to put fusion energy there, which is type 1 fusion. And what the rest of the area, what happens there, I don't know if they're going to do some kind of research park. That's still up in the air what's going to happen, but we hope to be at the table and have community conversations, both from a commission standpoint and a mayor standpoint and the public standpoint.
I was talking to Tracy Wandell about that last night on the air, actually. And I don't know what it is, the cold water, whatever they have, treatment, whatever they use, is evidently really kind of hard to get in other areas. Probably, like you said, a lot of red tape. And since it's already there, places like Google, Amazon, where they have all these servers that have to be constantly water cooled, they say that it's attractive for people like that if it's converted to that type of public-private, partnership.
Yeah.
So, but we'd have to be, I guess, you guys as county commission have to be prepared for that because that'd be a bunch of people, jobs, a bunch of infrastructure.
Yes, I know. Even right now, that whole road is going to be expanded into a 4-lane.
How are they going to do that on the bridge? They just like they did our bridge, build it out bigger coming across?
They're going to do a new bridge and a bigger bridge.
That's okay.
And it will have pedestrian access. Okay. And so I don't know what TVA will end up doing, but when they first discussed the closure, they talked about you've probably seen folks parking there. They like to kind of walk down that hill and fish. Well, they had an original concept design there to put maybe a small building down there that could be either community center or leased out to a restaurant, and then have some kayak and fishing area, more of a dedicated TVA does do their recreational area as well.
Sure.
They're beautiful.
Yes.
But TDOT did very early on in the planning process, when we were discussing the imminent closure of Bull Run, they did put in their plan to be able to come underneath the bridge in order to connect to the other side from a pedestrian access point, to be able to fish or kayak or whatever, so you're not going to have to park and then walk down the hill. To my knowledge, that's still in those plans. And then there is pedestrian all along that Edgemoor, which is pretty cool. I don't know what will end up happening in the long run. You look at one end, you've got ORNL, and then you've got Clark Center Park.
Yeah.
And you have Clark Center Park, and then you put in these sidewalks and bike paths all the way down Claxton. You know, you go down Blockhouse Valley if we're able to do something. I mean, this is all. I've been there 12 years, and I think if I would have started working on this 12 years ago, but, you know, it'll probably be ongoing after I'm gone, but I do see all of that just being a wonderful place for people to live, and then they're going to have all of this greenway and trails and stuff for the kids, the family, themselves, if they're retirees.
When you were talking about Gibbs Ferry, I was going to say, and if I can find it, I'll get it for you. When Wimp was the mayor's 21st Century Commission Walk to the Future. You remember that when Wimp put together that coalition of people? One of the things that's in that vision is that walkway you're talking about.
Oh, okay.
It would it would come from the sidewalk there in Clinton, right there by Farmhouse Furniture. That's where it is. But it would extend that down, and the vision was all the way to the trails at Oak Ridge. So very similar to what you're talking about from Gibbs Ferry down.
That.
Oh yeah, there's extensive plans, and even at one point the city of Clinton was given a $500,000 grant to do that, to put those sidewalks that would have taken it down to all the way to Gibbs Ferry and possibly further. And Mayor Burton felt that at the time that we weren't fiscally able to do that, and we gave that grant back. But there's been substantial. George Painter was real big on that with the trail. So that vision is something that the people have talked about doing since 2008 and 2009 when I was involved. So it is a long time coming, but that even then that need was recognized. So it's cool that there's a grant coming there. Possible grant coming.
That's
you guys can do that.
Yeah.
I'll find you a copy. I've got a copy somewhere, and it's got the maps in it. It's got a lot of cool stuff for that. But
cool.
Yeah, it's a cool vision. That's a lot. That's cool though. All these grants. I didn't realize that it sounds like there's a lot of focus on the reclamation, bull run, and recreation to turn it into things that our citizens can use.
Yes.
And a lot more people are coming here too. Who would have ever thought that right there? Like I said, at the golf course, there'd be that many people living right there. I know. That's, so.
Some of the other things we've got going on, the health department, we received some funds to be able to do some renovation there. And the opportunity, if you've ever been in there, that building was 3 individual physician offices, and then it was put all together in one building. The dental program is county-only program, not related to the state. And so what we're doing is moving the dental clinic to the far end of the health department, so the health department isn't divided by the county dental clinic, and it gives them more room that they've been needing. We'll put another chair in there, and the dental program has really grown. That provides a lot of service to the people in our county, especially to those in need. We've got that renovation project that will be happening, and then a health department renovation project that will be happening. Trying to think of other things, Ron, that might be of interest.
This has just been bandied about, but I know it's kind of picked up a little traction. Justice Center.
There are a lot of commissioners that want to do that. I mean, it's going to be, So I do have a memo that I'm working on for one of the commissioners who's just really been after me on, and I mean that in a good way. I don't mean like critical. He just wants to address some of our excess properties and
the courthouse in Oak Ridge,
And so like we have an old evidence building in downtown Clinton, and it's unsafe. We need to take it down. It definitely can't be used. But can we sell that off? Well, we have an emergency operations center that's down there as well, and we got a grant for a new emergency operations center. We're going to construct a new EOC in conjunction with the city of Clinton. So they will, they own the land. Mm-hmm. It's located next to SL Tennessee.
Got it.
And we will put our EOC, and the grant dollars and the match will be on the Anderson County EOC side, and then the city is going to make that their fire station on that
Stage out
end.
of that area, yeah.
And then it will have an office and a presence there for City of Clinton PD.
That's been a long time coming, too.
Yes. So that's happening. In fact, we got email traffic going right now. We have to get an archaeological survey to be able to get the grant contract in place. But when the EOC moves out of there, that's another building that's out of that pit there. And do we go ahead and survey all of that and offload that whole parcel, which could be a very nice location?
Sure.
I've often joked with Dr. Parrott, and in a lot of humor is truth, of course. But I'm like, well, when you're building this new Claxton Elementary, do you want to put an admin space in Claxton? Because if you're going to do a justice center, you're going to empty out the majority of the Jolly building except for the schools that are on the top floor. And is there, would Ron Meredith like to put WYSH on the top floor?
I think I've shared that before.
Yes, and I mean, it's an awesome building. We've updated it. We've updated the energy. We've improved the outside. Yeah. And I look back at the old pictures. I'm like, oh my gosh, why didn't we paint that thing years ago? But that was an energy improvement project that is more than paid for itself.
Absolutely.
And we've talked about this at the Finance Committee. We probably should publicly brag on it a lot more, because this is one of those projects where you tell the public, yes, it's going to pay for itself with energy savings. We have far exceeded what they even